I don't know why. The gigglers gave me the giggles. I don't know what to do.
Haven't even started.
We haven't even started. Welcome into the next step, the next episode of the next step.
The next
Did I nail
step.
it?
Yeah, listen, this season is the next
It
step.
is the next
we don't
step.
skip steps.
We don't.
This is the next step. We're moving along like it's the next step.
And
we're
the
talking
next
about Paul
player
Millsap,
on the
baby.
next step is Paul Millsap. Dad, guys, Dad has
Oh,
returned.
baby.
We were
Oh,
worried
baby.
for a moment
Thought he
that he was
wasn't
going to
gonna
leave
come
us.
back.
Yeah.
I can't believe. I know he came back. He actually did go to get cigarettes and came back.
Like, we've heard this one before. Oh, he is back with cigarettes. So Paul Millsap, guys, he's been a mainstay of this team. I mean, he was one of the biggest free agent signings in team history. A little older, you knew was going to happen. Aged, his role has kind of changed. Let's take a look at last year's stats to kind of frame the conversation for him, though. Down a little bit, 11.6 points, 5.7 rebounds, 1.6 assists. The efficiency, though, look at that three-point shooting, guys. A marksman. He really has evolved into this.
So confusing.
Like, floor spacer.
Yep.
That's kind of his role now, I think.
And it's an ideal, I don't know about ideal, but it's a good fit in Denver as a
Yeah.
guy who's like a fourth option, right, at best, maybe sometimes that third option. But what you really want him to be able to do is hit wide open shots. Different animal in the playoffs, but in the regular season last year, Paul Millsap was really underrated in that regard.
Well, that's why I'm confident he can still be a legit contributor because he can knock down threes.
Right.
And he's going to get a lot of those this season. The biggest thing I'm just thinking about with Millsap is last year was, I would say, like a successful handoff year between Jerami Grant and him.
Right.
Now, he could be the starter again.
Jerami Grant went out for cigarettes and never came back. So
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Sorry, guys, I'm going to go find Dad.
Yeah. But now he could be the starter again. Like,
Right.
can he handle that throughout a regular season? There's a lot of more questions there than I thought there'd be.
Yeah, time is a flat circle when it comes to the power forward position for the Denver Nuggets. It just goes right back around. Paul Millsap being a marksman at 3 is the most confusing stat that I think I've ever had to really digest. Like, if I think about what Paul Millsap does, I think about like sort of off balance, one-handed floater jumper things from the post that he's falling away. They go
just
in.
ridiculous foul calls
But
that
it's-
only he gets.
Yeah, but it's true. Like he really knocks down like an inordinate number of threes. But I mean, is that something you can count on for him? Like, does he really space the floor? Do people really worry about that?
Well, it's interesting because he was 31% his last year in Atlanta, 34% his first year in Denver, 36% 2 years ago, and then 43. So
43.
This 43 is the outlier, but it also is an upward trend with him. I mean, he has been getting better. A downward trend has been the minutes, 30 minutes per game when he arrived, then 27, then 24. That brings me to, well, actually, no, we'll save that one for a little bit later, but his role on here just continues to keep getting more and more diminished. And you look at the points, 11.6 last year. He might not be a double-figure scorer this year. I mean, his role on really might be defensive, low minute total, and all that kind of thing.
Especially with more scorers coming into the fold.
Yeah.
I think it could be a reduced role for Paul Millsap on the court. And while I think he probably starts opening night, guys, by the end of the season, I could see that changing. I could see it being another handoff year. So I think this is a transition year for Paul Millsap. Last year was supposed to be. Let's run it back from there.
Another
transition
transition
year.
back into the starting lineup for Paul Millsap.
For sure.
Well, here, let's go to the big question here, because I think the central thing that I keep thinking about with him, Paul Millsap during the regular season last year, phenomenal. You look at it in the playoffs, now it becomes a little more matchup dependent, and I wonder, is Paul Millsap still a 16-game player? A 16-game player means a playoff player.
Oh, I thought you were going to – I mean, I thought that meant is he going to play 16 games in the regular season?
For the Nuggets, it's a 28-game player. But yeah,
Right,
I get what
exactly.
you're
You're
saying.
going 7 every round. No, but Harrison, honestly, what do you think about that? Is he an 82-game player, 16-game player? What do you think?
In the right series, he's a 16-game player.
Right. Yep.
He really struggled against the Jazz. The Jazz played a style that defensively he was just not able to really have a role against. Against the Clippers, though, and against the Lakers, I thought he was fine. And I think that bodes well because he has aged. He's not as fast as he used to be, but I still trust him defensively. I just do. Individually, as a team defender, I want him out there if I'm trying to craft a playoff defense.
Yeah, Vogt. So, like, he hasn't started to adapt his game. Denver doesn't post him up or ISO him too much anymore. Is he going to continue? Like, is there another evolution, a further evolution for him?
I just think it's more of the same. I think we'll see even less of those, like first play of the game, first play of the quarter. Let's go to Millsap.
Yeah.
We got to get him going. I don't think they're going to feel like they have to get him going. If I could just piggyback real quick on Wynn's point too, Millsap was an underrated rebounder, particularly offensive rebounder at times in the playoffs. And that was a huge factor in those latter two series. So I saw the blown layups, the drops, the poor passes in transition like everyone else. But I thought he had a little more to offer in that postseason.
Yeah. Paul Millsap is a player whose contributions are not easily seen by the casual onlooker.
Never have been either.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think he's going to do anything to change that. I think that the narrative around town and the narrative for people that are just being tuned into the Nuggets for the first time is like they're not really going to understand what it is he brings to the table. He'll probably feel a lot of criticism. Luckily for Paul Millsap, he's no longer making a huge salary this year, so he sort of is free from that level of criticism where you can't just be like, oh,
why aren't you Kawhi?
Our $30 million a year player is playing X number of minutes. Now, thankfully, like his salary is going to be more in line with his actual production. So I think that actually is going to help Paul Millsap. But, you know, I mean, he's a guy that fills in a lot of cracks. He's a glue guy. And like Wynn was saying, I mean, he's just so reliable defensively. He's a positional defensive player. Right. He's not an above the rim defender.
And a help side defender.
And a help side defender. And, you know, obviously, like we're talking about Nikola Jokic, who, you know, those same casual onlookers would tell you that he's just a huge defensive liability. And there is some truth to that. Having a help side defender that is really a high IQ player is just key for Nikola Jokic.
True,
so
it's true.
Paul Millsap, you know, Dad, thank you. And can I have a cigarette?
Producer Allie, I'm going to drive her absolutely nuts here because we have to go. We're supposed to go to over under. That's what I just told her 10 seconds ago. But we're going to go to shocking stat because that's where
you have that queued up.
Shocking stat.
Shock you with this transition
because it's too. Yeah, look at this. Oh, look at this thing. Look at this graphic. Incredible. Shocking, guys. The number one on-off differential last year went to none other than Paul Millsap.
Whoa.
So for the Denver, it is shocking, right? But this happens a lot, especially with the when you just talk defensively. But you know, there was a lot of talk about Jerami Grant leaving. You know, and some of this, by the way, just to preface this means when he was on the court versus when he was off, there was the biggest gap between that. When he was on the court, the Nuggets were almost 11 points better than when he was off the court, which is bigger than everybody, including Jokic. Part of this is he missed a lot of games, and when he was healthy, everyone was healthy. So Jokic played all year, some of that with everyone, some of that with no one. So, of course, it gets weighted down. But nonetheless, the point remains, when he was on the court, especially with Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, the Nuggets just murdered. They were awesome. This is consistent every year. So to your point, he doesn't stick out in the box score, but there's no reason for me to believe, at least in the regular season, that Paul Millsap isn't going to make the Nuggets a lot better.
Right. He is just that piece of tape that holds things together on the defensive end of the floor. And look, as Paul Millsap has been here, this isn't breaking news. Nikola Jokic has improved defensively. Jamal Murray has improved defensively. He's been a catalyst in that. Just him kind of setting the tone on that end of the floor. So, I mean, this isn't like an opinion I haven't shared before, but his value over the last several seasons has been immense. It goes beyond the box score.
And I wonder,
not a wind chime.
I wonder if everyone is prepared for the possibility of, when they do transition to him not starting or maybe even not being on the team one day, what does that do to the defensive floor? I think some folks might be surprised to see how far it drops depending on how they fill that gap.
It's happened each of the last 2 years. He's gotten hurt, and then the Nuggets are just an offense-only team. All right, let's bring up the over-under for him because, all right, I mentioned his minute totals have been going down every single year since he's been in Denver. First 30, then 27, then 24. Over-under, guys, 20 minutes per game next year. 20 minutes. That's not very many.
I'm gonna take over, not by much, but I think a big factor for me is I don't know if I'm knocking on wood, crossing my fingers, that he avoids that freak injury that's plagued him twice in Denver. And both of those injuries, by the way, not really or seemingly results of his age or his body breaking down, just total freak accidents. So if he can avoid that, I think there's a chance he plays 22, 23 minutes a game.
I'm going to shock the world. Going under 20 minutes per game. Look, guys, JaMychal Green is here. I think early on it's going to be over, and people are going to at me in January 10th and be like, "Oh, nobody said it was under. He's playing 30 minutes."
We might be the only ones adding.
I'm going to get
nobody's going to
my
at me.
drafts ready.
But I think that as the year goes on, I mean, Jerami Grant, I think, can step in. Isaiah Hartenstein maybe even plays a little bit of power forward alongside Jokic, the Twin Tower lineup. Michael Porter, I think, is the big one, though. Moving him to power forward, just all the signs are there for Denver to maybe try playing small. And then, of course, let's not forget about Bol. He's waiting in the wings. Perhaps he's ready, at some point this season. So I would not be surprised if Paul Millsap was a very crucial but very sparingly used piece of the Nuggets this year.
I'm gonna go under. I think that Paul Millsap is. I don't see. I do think he's a 16-game player, I do think that that's a regular season total. I think that probably he's not going to play a ton of games.
The Andre Iguodala treatment just coast through the regular season. You don't like to compare him to him.
I don't like to compare anyone to Andre Iguodala. More Rodentia. But the thing is that. He's on the back half of his career. There's no surprise. And I just see load management being a real part of the strategy with Paul Millsap. He is very he's a very important and integral piece when it comes down to playoffs and things of that nature. So I see Michael Malone using him more sparingly. So that's why so get the red.
Yeah, I'll go under 2.
Wow.
Just barely. And
so you went over.
Yeah, I feel wrong
I think there's
about
a chance it goes over just because I have a feeling that trust between Michael Malone and Paul Millsap is still there.
That's true. We know the security.
Yeah.
Malone loves his security blankets.
And
that's a security blanket.
It would just surprise me if, opening night of the regular season, he doesn't go with that Millsap-Jokic front court because that's just been the staple here. That's what everybody's comfortable with. We know that combo is really, really good. Yeah. But I'm with you, Adam. The fact that when the depth they've got, Jerami Grant, what they've got, the center position behind Jokic, as the season wears on, I could see his role being a little reduced, so he's fresh for the playoffs.
All right, well, let's go to a bold prediction here. It's hard to make bold predictions on Paul Millsap. He was maybe the single hardest one because he's, it's just not that bold. I think I'm up first here. Vogt's up first here.
Oh, man, I don't want to go first. I don't even like my take.
Okay, great. This is going to be a terrible one.
This is his last NBA contract.
Dude, that's a terrible take.
He's retiring?
He's retiring after this?
This is it. He's done.
It's not that. It is bold, but it's appropriate for this segment.
It's bold. It's not likely. I do want to say, actually not off the table, guys. Is this his 15th NBA season he's entering? I don't, he just got that big payday. This is a family guy. What if Denver makes a title run this year? And here's what I think.
Wow, it sounds like it was a downer bold prediction, but it's actually at the ultimate.
If the Denver Nuggets win the title,
let me prepare my body for this.
Paul Millsap hangs it up, and he retires a Denver Nugget.
Wow, the brightest of all timelines.
That's great.
I just saved that just
you
now.
Did
I
save
came
it.
up with that.
Wow, you really saved it. All right, who is next, Allie? Okay, it's me. Well, mine's a little less exciting here. I think this might not be a key piece of the rotation for the playoffs. And again, this has a lot to do with like what we talked about. It's so matchup dependent, and I just wonder if Denver's going to have other pieces. I mean, look, it also could be that Denver makes a big trade, and there's other pieces that you get a more wing. You get a wing defender at the trade deadline. Now you can move Michael Porter to the 4 because you have another guy alongside him. So I don't know. Watching the playoffs last year, there are matchups that he could be very valuable in. I'm going to make a bold prediction. Said Nuggets won't use him that way. Who's next? Win.
I think I'm up here. Not the happiest of takes here. This is his last season in Denver.
Bummer, man.
He could be back. He could, sign another contract. But I just wonder if this current iteration of the Nuggets will kind of move past Paul Millsap a little bit. He was so valuable for what he did when this team was super young and just didn't know how to play defense. I just wonder if there's a version of this team that has kind of moved on from him.
Real cats in the cradle.
Yeah.
My boy was just like me. We're looking back at Dad.
Eric, your bold take. Do you even remember it?
Nope. I'm waiting to read it for the first time. He's going to miss more than half the games. Wow.
Wow, Eric.
What an unbelievable bummer. Did somebody write this for me?
So you think he'll miss these because of injury?
I think he'll miss it because of injury. I just feel like, I just feel like he's, I don't even want to say it out loud. I just think
injury
he's going to miss half
load
the
management?
We'll just say that this is like purely load management based.
Okay, yeah. Well, it is like, look, a short off season, condensed regular season. I mean, there is a chance that is a big risk for it. But I think they'll load manage him appropriately. Come on, Paul Millsap. He's not that old.
Yo, man, listen, it's a bold prediction. It's a bummer prediction. I'm not proud of it. I forgot what I wrote. Reading it made me sad. So let's just say that it won't happen and I'm wrong, like I am about most things.
All right. Well, that does it for this edition of it. If you guys are members of DNVR, of course, you can go to thednvr.com, become a subscriber. It's just $5 a month. You get access to the next segments for him. We have inside sources, a win chime, win sharing, what he's been hearing from talking to people around. We got the fan vote. And then, of course, George Karl had some things to talk about with me. And then, of course, Eric's irrational fan take.
Hell yeah.
You can get all of that if you're a member. For all of the player previews, don't forget, go to thednvr.com to get those. We'll see you, everybody.